Here we go. I told Sebi we're starting, so that means we're starting. And this is episode 10, which is double digits for the size up. In just about, I guess, as many months as we've been around, I've been able to record this many podcasts, which is kind of sad. I have to get more of these. And I say this, and it's just one of those things. But anyway, tonight we're doing something totally different again. This is Ted Lasso Take Two. And I have with me two, it's kind of weird, like my one of my oldest best friends, and I guess like one of my newest best friends, who both happen to be fire captains in the great state of Virginia. Different areas of the great state of Virginia. It's even greater today than it was yesterday, in a few people's opinions out there, at least. But Wells and Rob, welcome to the Size Up, man. What's up, guys?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
It's funny too, because this Ted Lasso show, Rob had not watched it. I convinced him that he had to watch it, and that was a binge in how
probably a day and a half.
Easily. It is one of the positives for the shows. I mean, they're 30-minute episodes, and you could kind of roll through them. An interesting thing about Ted Lasso, though, if you watched it when it came out, you had to wait each week. So Mrs. Pip was watching and complaining about that. And then I jumped in, and then it was like waiting for Friday, just like I am for The Mandalorian.
I think Jill and I jumped onto the episodes a similar way I jumped onto the episodes a similar way that you did, Pip, where Jill watched like the first two episodes one night, and she's like, babe, you got to come watch this. And I was like, okay. She's like, I'll watch them again. They're that good. Like, this is a great show. So I think we both started watching all the way through up until about episode 7. And then we had to wait for the last couple episodes week by week. And it was like, oh man, is it Friday yet?
You were so waiting for it, like, because you're so into this. Like, I just watched the Queen's Gambit. We just watched the Queen's Gambit on Netflix. And I mean, it was great, but I binged it so rapidly. Like, it was like rapid fire, where waiting would be better. And especially for Ted, and that's kind of what this is all about tonight, in a way, is Ted Lasso as a leader. And just to give everybody in the Size Up world, a little bit about you guys, Wells, why don't you tell us kind of where you're from, what you do, and I don't know, you can even go with how we know each other, but that's a whole separate podcast in and of itself.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was trying to do the math. You and I have known each other, I think, summer 97, so 23 years.
Sure, summer 97 sounds good.
Does that sound about right?
Right in there, somewhere like that.
Yeah. So, 23 years. We met up in New Jersey. We started. We walked through the door of the fire department at the same time, volunteering back in the day in '99, and the rest is history. But we had to take separate career paths at some point, and I think you got hired in New Brunswick, and I made the trip south with my family, and so I work in the city of Alexandria, and I'm a captain there. I work at Firehouse 206 up on Seminary Road, and I've been there for about 14 years now.
Nice, man. Nice. And too, like you've kind of along the Ted Lasso lines, man, you dealt with a lot of things in your firehouse, because you guys, for the firefighters out there, they were a rescue and engine company where the gear stayed in the middle, because if they had to take the rescue, they went to the rescue. If they had to take the engine, they had to take to the engine. And now you guys are riding the rescue still, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah, we were really fortunate. We still do. We have a really motivated firehouse with a lot of great folks, and we started as a much smaller group, riding, doing a single pull between two units, and we have our medic unit in house. They're great, and then we got upstaffed in June of 2018 after years of that single pull, and so from a leadership perspective, we went from 4 people. 2 folks on the medic unit and our battalion chief in house to now, almost doubling in size. So it's been very positive, but it, adds more challenges. You're, adding a lot more personalities, and, that makes it fun. So
those growing pains, as you say, literally. Right?
Yeah. And, to the credit of everybody that works at our firehouse, everyone's really taken it in stride, and we definitely embrace that culture of the fire service family, and that's represented very well where I work, and I'm I'm so appreciative of the folks I work with for that.
Awesome, man. And that's something too, I know you're wearing the sweatshirt right now, but let everybody know what AFTD is all about, because that's a big part of you in my mind, at least.
Well, much like you, I kind of wandered into an organization.
He didn't wander. He did not wander.
It was oh my God.
No,
he rode into it. He rode.
No, so I help out with Andy Frederick's training days. We've been going about 10 years. We started in 2009. Dan McMaster, Joel Kanaski started a fund after 2001 for Andy's family, the Frederick's Family Fund. And around 2008, 2009, they started asking for some help to see if we could do something to, help raise some funds for his two children as they were approaching college age. So both Dan and Joel recognized that, a training event would be really appropriate for, to remember a guy like Andy and the passion he had for the fire service. And they asked for help, and I said, sure, I'd love to help. And,
little did you know at the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I joke, I wandered into it, but I just kept showing up and being like, they're like, oh, we need to, make a website. And I was like, I think I could help with that. Oh, we need to send out emails. I'm like, I could do that too. And then, one thing leads to another, but I mean, we have a ton of volunteers in Alexandria, Fairfax, Arlington, and now really the whole Northern Virginia, Maryland, DC region that converge every year that we do it and help us out. And it's been a really, cool tribute for him, and the family really appreciates it. And we've met our initial goal, and now we're a nonprofit. So we have a two-sided mission, or a two-pronged mission to support fire training, and also to help families that have suffered either a serious injury or line of duty death.
That's awesome, man. And you guys are like in my book, at least, like the OGs of that small training type conference that you do so well.
Yeah.
And now they're everywhere for sure. I mean, everybody's doing them, but you guys are definitely one of the first, I would say.
Well, sure. We tried to keep it really humble and really focused on the content and nothing else. So we've had a number of folks that have produced some other training events around the country, are former attendees or continuing attendees of Andy Frederick's training days. And, it's really flattering to know that other folks have gone out and taken a model that, we had seen and we worked on, and, many of them have made it better and bigger, and, been able to, kind of pop these things up around the country, because it really speaks to a need, I think, that's out there for folks that just want, really focused content, for them, that's not about a lot of the other stuff that's going on sometimes in the fire service.
Bullshit.
So.
No bullshit. We could curse on this.
There you go.
We can curse on all of them.
There you go.
But that's it, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to.
I don't know. Do I got to turn my shirt inside out?
It's funny too, because that's something I think we're going to kind of get into tonight when we talk about the show a little bit, and what the legacy it could lead towards the fire services. So I think that's pretty cool. So Rob, this is your second time on the Size Up, right? Because we did the 555 episode.
Oh yeah,
the FDIC episode. You might.
I forgot that one.
That was like a drinking episode. That was a firefighter fun episode. Let's call it. Yeah, you're the first.
I miss FDIC.
No, I totally miss FDIC. We're not getting into that. No sadness tonight, right? But that you're the first repeat guest, then I guess that's the way this goes.
Oh,
so welcome as my first episode 10.
Yeah.
Repeat guest. So Rob, tell everybody who you are, where you're from. What if you listen to episode 9, you'll know what Rob's shirt means, so I don't have to listen to it tonight. But
that's for you, Kim. So yeah, I'm 20 some years total in the fire service. I started off as a volunteer, actually in my community, just on a whim. I'm now 18 years career. I'm a captain at Station 2, which is a hazmat station, which I am not generally known for. I'm more into the HTR and Swiftwater world.
Most of us are.
So yeah, so I've started embracing that, I guess. But yeah, I've been a captain now. I honestly don't know because it's gone fast. I think 2 or 3 years. Our department's currently in somewhere in there. well, whenever FDIC was last, right? So 2 years.
2 years.
2 years. Um, uh, our department's currently going through a really big change in that our average tenure is somewhere around the 7-year mark. We lost a whole lot of the older generation that had been there forever, and a lot of us were leaning on them heavily, and so we're having our own growing pains, but we're getting through it. I think the senior firefighter in my station, which I have 9 guys under me right now, I think is somewhere around 7 years, 7, 8 years. So it's fun, but in different ways. We all have our challenges, and we get to go across them. I ran into Pip at a conference in North Carolina. He through some kind of like you did, Wells, falling into Andy Fredericks. I started Instagramming for 555 and reposting. That's all I was doing. And then from there, it grew very rapidly.
Can you do this? I can do this. I can do this. I can do this
Yeah,
too.
I kept saying yes
Right?
too, and that led to now I do the social media for 555 for the most part. I've got a really great partner up in New England who's wicked smart with it.
Wicked
so
smart
she'll
with-
appreciate it. But yeah, I don't know how long I've known you now, Pip. I can't.
It's
I
been a
couldn't put
few
number
years,
on.
something like that. But
5
time doesn't
years.
matter anymore. I've learned that one. But you know, it's funny that we're talking about Ted Lasso. There's gonna be spoilers. So for anybody that's
Yeah,
listening
absolutely.
tonight, there's gonna be spoilers, which doesn't really even matter. Like, because this show, today I watched 4 episodes today. By the way, after I did the sitting in the car YouTubing Ted Lasso and laughing, I watched 4 episodes just before we started because Tracy's like, "You're really doing this," and I'm like, "I'm really doing this. Like, I want to watch a couple more." But it's a show on Apple TV, and the premise is that an American football coach is hired to coach a British Premier Club football team. Totally different sport there for those of you who don't know. Football in England is soccer in America. We're just gonna end it there. There's a big good Ted Lasso skit on YouTube about that though. But so he's hired to coach this team, and he just goes over there with this attitude of, you know, this can-do attitude. Is that a good way to put it, guys? Or
Yeah.
like how I'm gonna make this better, how I'm gonna make this situation better. And I almost feel like it's like us and what we just described in our kind of journeys with 555 and with Andy Fredericks of like stumbling into it. You know, he wanted to try something new. He wanted to help out. He wanted this new job, and that's what he did. So our goal tonight is to talk about Ted Lasso and some of his great leadership qualities and kind of compare them to the fire service and how you can take some of the lessons that you know, Jason Sudeikis, I've listened to a few other podcasts with him on it, and he really, this show took a while to write. You know, this is a really long and thought out, and there's so much depth to it that we're not even going to scratch the surface tonight with, I think, what we're going to talk about. But it's kind of one of those.
It's a very well made show. It's not, you can tell it's, I think, as you said in one of the other episodes, there's a lot of layers to it.
there definitely is. Like there's you can go any route. And you know, before we got going on it, Tracy got me into watching it. Jill got you into watching it, Wells. You know, and it's one of those ones that even in the beginning, I was like, "What are you watching? Like, why are you watching this show about the Premier League? You hate soccer, football, whatever you want to call it today." And she's like, "It's amazing. You have to watch." And then you get sucked in. And I think, and what I've gotten response back from the first episode with Kim, episode 9, talking about this, is there's even fire stations that are like, we just have it on now. Like, it's just on the TV, and guys are laughing and picking up different things because it's that type of show where anybody can watch it. And I think
there's something interesting about it too, where, you know, I notice in the fire service when we talk about leadership and we think about leadership, a lot of us look to military leaders, for example. A lot of us look to some of those more traditional outlets, and even though it's a fictional show, what appeals to me so much about it is it's a really good kind of working model for what an alternative approach to leadership could be, where, you're not looking at this from a perspective of, we got to be SEAL Team 6 in the firehouse. That doesn't work for everybody. And so here's a guy, Ted Lasso, that is, just very positive, very authentic, and very engaging. And that it's a really wonderful example to see as an sort of a break from some of the, the drumming that we've seen from years and what you need to be as a leader, where you have to be like this and, military. And I'm not saying there's not value in that, but I think it's refreshing to see a different example or an alternate model for what leadership could look like and be effective.
Well, to keep going on that, and the fire service itself has always presented completely new challenges for anybody who tries to come in and teach leadership. I know we had an Air Force colonel come in, and he decided that he was going to spend several weeks actually in the firehouse, and then he was going to write a program for us, a leadership program. Colonel Moyer was his name. He spent 3 days, night and day in the firehouse, and he instantly went, "You guys are completely different from anything else," because there are those moments where you do have to be that straight line. But then there's those moments where you have to start blending because you're essentially at a second home, and I think that's where what you're getting at, where it's that, you can apply some of it, but at the same time, there's stuff that, how do I say this right? HR probably wouldn't agree with necessarily, but it's got to be done because you live and eat and spend a third of your life with these guys and gals, and that's completely different from most anywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely something that we're seeing more and more of now when it comes to that leadership training, and listen, I definitely subscribe to that military-ness of how things should be, but it can't be that 100%,
right.
And I think that's something that, to take the quote, and this is kind of where I wanted to start this anyway, which is really weird that you guys start talking about this, like when you come into the fire service end of it. But, Ted says in that dart scene, be curious, not judgmental. And it's not his quote, it's not a Ted Lasso quote, but that whole scene with him playing darts and talking about that, I feel like the fire service has probably always been, but with the advent of the internet and social media, that judgmentalness, that's what we always are, is we are just judgmental, when we should be curious about exploring different avenues of leadership. I mean, we can learn from anyone and apply those principles to what it is we do, because our job is so like varied, I guess.
Vast, very
vast and varied, right?
Yeah.
I think it's always been one of the, well, I won't say always. I think something that I've noticed is that we have to wear two hats as firefighters. In one instance, one of the traits that's championed is being able to look at a situation and quickly make a decision about what's going to solve that problem when we're on the fire ground. But then, are we doing the same thing when we make judgments of people back in the firehouse, or actions that we see from neighboring firehouses? Are we applying that same methodology there? And I think when we do, that's when we start to hit, find some flaws in the way that we execute that, where it doesn't work, right? We kind of need to be sprinters and marathon runners at the same time, where in one moment, I'm going to be very quick and decisive, but in another moment, I'm going to be working 30 years next to you or 25 years next to you. So I need to maybe marinate a little bit more and take some time to be curious in that moment without being judgmental, because goodness, we are violently judgmental. I mean, it's, but seriously though, I mean,
no, you're right.
We have an issue. We have, I think, I mean, we almost, I'm not going to say we need to do a safety stand down, because I'm not a fan of that, but we do need to take a hard look at ourselves in the fire service, because we are too quick to judge right off the bat. It's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you guys see that?
Yeah. No, like,
go ahead.
Not disagree. No, like not disagreeing at all. I mean, you're preaching to the choir in that
Yeah.
it's one of those and that goes across the board. It's not just in our actions; it's in how they think things. And I say they, and we'll talk more about what they are. But but we probably already know. It's one of those. From one vantage point, it may seem black and white, but if you come from another vantage point, there's a whole lot of grays in there. And I think that's really something that kind of needs to be stop being so black and white, which is to me judgmental. If you say there's only this way or that way, there's a lot of blending. We got to kind of do that. Boy,
And
what an odd time to have that happen during an election. But anyway,
it takes us so much time. Wells, I love that you use that it's something I pride myself in, is that ability to react quickly to a situation, make a size up, no pun intended there, course of action, let's go. But when it comes to people and when it comes to us and how we treat each other, we're doing the same thing. It's very hard to detach from that, I guess, is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And it's something that I know for sure we need to do a better job of. And Ted is like the ultimate example of that. Now, granted, he's not, pulling up to a burning building and having to make decisions and things like that. He's coaching a football team, but he's really able to do that in all of his situations, both personally and professionally.
Well, yeah. we can reference that. We can go. He doesn't go for a tie, right? So he says like it's either a win or a loss. But then what happens towards the end, right, is that the tie.
You got to go for the tie. Yeah. You have to go for the tie sometimes. Which, and again, dealing with those the folks we may not want to deal with, let's say, that are the problem children, I believe we've called them sometimes, let's say. Sometimes we have to meet somewhere in the middle to make that work, because we do have to make this work. And as leaders ourselves, we know that it's going to work out better if everybody's kind of humming together as a team. And that sentiment with Ted Lasso is unreal in the show, throughout the entire show.
So I found thinking about the quote that you had brought up, and I think it's worth just repeating again, which was the Walt Whitman quote that he uses in the dart scene, which is "Be curious, not judgmental." I think what we can do, and what I try and do, is that when we have those moments where you want to just go judgmental, is to see if you can stop yourself and say, why did they make that decision? Or let me try and understand where they're coming from with that before I go to the judgment part. And if we can add that into our decision process, I think we'd all be a lot better off. And I found another quote, actually a friend of mine passed it on to me. It's from Henry Ford, which is, "Don't find fault, find a remedy."
Oh, yeah.
Which I think pairs really well with that Walt Whitman quote. So I didn't want to get too far past that and not share that, because I really like that when we're thinking about our people. Let's not try and look for fault. And I think, Rob, in your notes, you had said something about not playing the blame game.
Yeah, absolutely. I do it. I mean, I think we're all guilty of it, but at the same time, I don't like to push the blame. I mean, it's one of those, sometimes you got to step up and say, hey, this is what happened. Let's figure it out. As you were talking, I was thinking the radio pause. The radio pause before you do anything on a fire scene. You take a half a second. Why do you do that, right? And it's the same thing when making the decision with personnel. Take that radio pause and be like, wait a minute, hold on.
And then, Wells, you don't ride up, do you? You don't act as the battalion, or do you?
No, I don't.
You don't. So, and neither do I. As a lieutenant in my department, we don't. The captains do that, but Rob does do that.
Yeah.
And has had that experience of riding up as the. You guys have battalions or deputies?
Yeah, 2 battalions. We got a north and a south battalion.
So I feel like in that position, even more, You know, when you're we always call him the substitute, which is probably not very.
No, it's 100% accurate.
I know it is.
Because it's when the misbehaving is going to happen.
Right, when the substitute turns her back. Like so I had a captain when I was a rookie, and then I worked for him. He eventually became a chief on another shift, but literally that's what he would say. Like he would come in and be like, "The substitute's here, so throw your spitballs when I turn my back," and things. And like, there's probably kids now that don't even understand what that means, right? But when you think about riding up, right, and that role that you're in, that's even more of that, you know, that be curious, not judgmental, because you may have to deal with people you don't even necessarily know that well in your battalion, you know, that you've never worked with. You've maybe, I mean, I'm sure you've met them in your department, but
Oh
like,
yeah.
you
Well,
don't necessarily know them, right?
well, but the big challenge, like I said, with us is how young we are. I mean, there's guys and gals who are 3 years in, and I'm just now seeing them, and it's no fault other than mine probably because I don't vary off my shift too often. Uh, but yeah, I mean, you can't go in and immediately make a judgment call on them. It's the first time meeting them. You got to take a second, however that is, through questioning or just observation, and figure out who they are and where they're coming from, and remember that they are only 2-3 years in. You know,
Yeah.
They're only kids. What did you say in your way? I got it
yeah,
relaxed. They're just kids.
relax. Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad you said that because that has been my motto a lot lately. Relax. They're just kids. Now, granted, sometimes that's through gritting teeth, but they are truly just kids because we just started hiring at 18. You know, and there's no life experiences. There's no anything. It's I came out of high school and guess what? Now I'm in the fire service of all places.
Yeah, it's definitely something. And again, Ted is coaching football, and we were talking about the fire service here, where, you know, relax, they're just kids for him is very different than relax, they're just kids for us. But that doesn't mean that our response can be really any different than his was in that type of situation, because they don't have these experiences, you know. And especially, I mean, I heard this in the early ons of my career, was that, you know, like I have zero trade experience when I became a firefighter. Like by trades, you know, a craftsman. I was not. I was an EMT and a dispatcher. But I brought those skills to the table that some of my leaders were like, "We love you. Please come work for me because on an
Yeah.
EMS call, you're going to do it." You know, ask me to build raker shores or when I was hired. And I'm like, "Oh, what was that you need again?" Right?
But when the MDTs came along, who was the guy? Right?
We're not there yet, dude.
Oh,
We're almost there. I swear to you. And yes, and going to have almost 18 years in, 17 years in, whatever I'm going to have next year, I am still one of the guys that's running that program.
Do you guys still get the printer paper with the little dots on the side that you rip off, or is that?
We moved on from that, but it was there when I got hired. When I
still
started,
have it. We still have it. They
just
just
trifold.
they won't get rid of it is the problem.
Yeah, that's a healthy tradition. That's a good one.
Those are good ones to not change.
You can't get parts anymore for those printers.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
You can. You just got to know where to look. You have to find
Super glue and bubble gum.
Okay, how about Southwest Virginia can't get parts for that anymore?
But yeah, and even in that quote of being curious, you know, it's about your people. You know, be curious about your people. And I think, and I don't know, like I said, I think we're going to be jumping around a little bit, but to me, we kind of can tell a story through this where, you know, for Ted, it's all about the people on his team, the people who are his bosses, his peers, his friends. And when we think about that, you know, in the first episode with Sam, when he's like, I think Sam's feeling down, and that's why he's not playing to his potential.
Mm-hmm.
And literally he finds out it's his birthday. And Nate, who I think we're going to probably spend the most amount of time on eventually, so we're not going to get into him now. You know, he has Nate make the box.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Even before we go to, no, we'll talk about Sam. Then we're going to jump back into the first Nate box a second. But like with Sam, you know, he talks about his people. So when you think of the fire service and as a leader, especially a company level leader, our people are our most important. and how we treat them and how we find things out about them is key. And that's a huge part for Ted right there.
Yeah, he takes a lot of time getting to know his folks, and I think when I was listening to your last episode, your volume 1 with Ted with Kim, I realized I had the same impression that she did, where we got like 2 episodes into it, and I was like, I thought there'd be more soccer.
Yeah, exactly.
What happened? But much like the fire department, we spend this much time on incidents, we spend this much time training, and then the rest of it is in the firehouse. So our job is about the people we serve, but more importantly, controversially I might say this, more importantly, it's about the people we serve with. And where do we put ourselves in relation to them as a company officer or as an informal leader? How do we support them and keep that team building going? And we should be spending time on that. That's something that we shouldn't overlook just for personal skills or personal advancement. We should be looking at bringing everybody forward with us as we advance.
So let's go deep into something here. And as an officer, shouldn't you be serving them, right?
Absolutely.
And so if we go to Ted and we look at Boss Lady, what did he do every morning?
Biscuits with the boss.
Which was what? He was serving her, right?
Yep.
Oh, careful. But he took the time to research what biscuit it was that she liked. He took the time to prepare it every night prior to, sorry, spoiler, maybe, I don't know. But he took the time to really figure out what it was that made her feel worthy and serve that to her, so to speak. And I think that's really, like you said, we stop looking at, I think our people should look at they are serving the community. I think the officers should look at we are serving our people. Just
absolutely. I mean, it sounds like I'm sure we're all preaching to the choir here,
yeah.
but
I suspect that
all of us have
hopefully
all of us have a strong pull towards servant leadership. And the idea that our organization is set up like this, where our fire chief is on top, to me is inherently flawed. It should be, like that. Our firefighters are at top. Our firefighters are the one that are out there, taking blood pressures, putting out fires, doing the training, and then our officers serve them, our battalion chiefs serve them, and it should go like that.
For sure. This year, I think. Go ahead.
More so, yeah, absolutely, more so.
Yeah, this year more so than not is where, I mean, our job got to be just like the bearer of bad news, and in New Jersey especially. You guys were in a little bit different spot in Virginia, but there in March and April, I mean, it was not easy to talk to my people because I was never bringing them anything good for a while there. And they worked through it. And I worked through it with them, but they were the ones that really made it all work. You know what I mean? They were the ones that took what I said and did what had to be done, is an easy way to put it. And to think of that in the fire service, when we talked about Andy Fredericks and just some of the organizations that are out there and what people are promoting and buying into, it's almost like the exact opposite. And these are some of the folks that I know, Wells, you respect, Rob, you respect, I respect as leaders and people who taught us things, but it's time we have to look at what they said a little bit differently maybe now.
Well, the showers, I mean, that's an example of it.
Oh, I was still going to get into that, right? What he did with fixing
the showers.
That
seems like a good segue to it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not even saying it anymore, but like basically Ted made a suggestion box, and a lot of his suggestions were basically from the team to him. We're basically calling him a wanker, which, as he described to his son, is just a man who wants to be alone with his thoughts.
Yeah.
But then after a few wanker quotes and even one that was like, oh, it's not signed. Oh no, Roy signed his name for this one. But one was that the pressure in the shower sucked, and he's like, we can fix this, and he did. And I know that in my own department, fixing the littlest thing that the guys don't like, or doing the littlest thing that can make their lives a little bit better, goes so far.
Huge.
Well, it shows that you have skin in the game and that you're putting them first, and it's authentic. You're not. He didn't make a big deal out of it. The person that asked for that found it on their own. He didn't come around and go, "Hey, I fixed your shower for you." Like, this isn't a
You
quid
mean you're
pro
not
quo
supposed to do that,
thing.
Wells? Like,
Yeah, but it's just done. It's taken care of, and that's authentic. It's not a look at me approach. It's just a let's focus on what's important for the for
the
the
greater
team.
good.
Yeah, and keep moving, and then we can focus on the game instead of focusing on these other distractions.
For sure. And like with that shower thing, I mean, I know that, again, it's just the smallest of gestures that so many people appreciate, and then it becomes that ripple effect. In the show, it didn't really, it started the ripple, but it was very small.
Yeah, I think they could have gone a little further, but
They could have, yeah.
Season 2 is still around the corner. So.
Season 2 and 3, by the way, they've signed on for 2 more seasons. So
holy cow, I don't think I know that part.
Yeah,
spoiler. I didn't know that.
They were looking. So again, listen to a lot of podcasts. They were looking for another August release. Who knows what they'll be able to film this year, how it's all going to work. But yeah, I hope that they kind of keep that going. I mean, you see it throughout the season and the change, but just that little thing, even Roy appreciated it, and I thought that was huge. And that was the same one that was in the Sam episode, where it was just that little thing, and they lost the game. That was a loss. That was a sad day. And he's like, nope, this is going to be a good day. We're going to turn this into something good and make this kind of work for all of us.
Yep.
Which is that leadership quality of just saying, like, even in the bad times, we need to move on. It's that we talked about it in episode 9, the goldfish theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to Rob, what you had said about not carrying that baggage, or what were you said?
Carrying responsibility.
Carrying responsibility in the blame game. Looking forward, I joke with some of my firefighters that I'm like a golden retriever. Like, you can hit me with the newspaper one day, but I'm going to come back and wag my tail and hope that someone will throw the stick for me the next day and we'll be okay. But it's kind of like that goldfish theory, where it's like, how much energy do we spend about something we heard about somebody, as opposed to putting that energy into your team or into your company to drive it forward. And does that really benefit? I mean, then what example are you setting for your folks, that we're going to sit here and stew about what's already happened? Or could we take that energy and put it out on the field or into our company drill this afternoon and have something positive to talk about? And Ted exemplifies that in his model.
It's that you have to do, you take that energy and you do, you find out, like you just said, like, do we take that energy and just go after that person, or do we take that energy and find out what's going on in that situation? And we just, I mean, I rarely talk about my department at all, but we just had another shift had a fire, and you come in and you hear things, this, that, the other thing, about how the fire went and this and that. And we could have just went along with the stories we've heard from everyone else, but we always try to go out and look at the fire, look at the building, and see what was there. And listen, they had a challenging fire, a challenging building, a challenging fire. But if I just listened to the stories, I'd be like, they just didn't know what they were doing. Like we would have crushed that with our eyes closed. You know what I mean?
Well, I like to take the story and turn that into a training exercise to see if they would do the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Without, like, before. So I don't know how to describe this correctly. Like, if you hear the story, you then turn around and come up with a training scenario that's very close, but where they won't know that that's what you're doing.
What happened? Yeah.
And see if they follow the same lines, right? Like, if they do, then you're like, hey guys, we're no better.
If I had a way to if I had a way to recreate this building, this is a great training building for a lot of different, even more drawing. But that's it. We took our energy that we could have easily, and I'm not going to sit here and say we didn't
No, you definitely
talk at the
give them a
kitchen
hard
table
time.
about
Yeah.
them for a while. But we went out there and looked at it, and we had two companies out there at the same time, and everybody's like, whoa, this was a challenge. And that's something, again, that I think you take from Ted, where he takes that energy, he takes the negativity, he takes the entire stadium chanting wanker at him the entire time, and just keeps on, oh, we're going to get him next time. And I appreciate you. There's the old man that passes him and, basically tells him off every time. But he gives him that, like, you're turning it around. We are turning it around. You take that energy and you move it forward.
And I know this year it was hard. Like, I know I was guilty of not turning it around when I should have. But you can't, like, we go back to the goldfish or the golden retriever again, right?
Yeah.
Don't dwell on that. Keep moving forward, and you'll stay ahead of the game, hopefully.
And don't forget, your folks are looking at you. I think, there was part of me when I was watching this show where I'm like, well, this is a little idealistic, and there's, I believe in it, but I think in the fire service, the timeline would be longer. We wouldn't see, I don't think you'd see the Roy Kents of your fire department come around like that.
No,
I think there would be a longer shift for people to kind of get on board with that philosophy, or with that, to believe if you're really being authentic, or if you're just kind of playing it up for that day, which goes into one of the key traits of being in a leadership position in the fire service, is that consistency. And we see that with the character of Ted Lasso, is his unfailing consistency of taking that positive route as opposed to buying into the negative route when he is surrounded by negative. Because the whole show is based on a couple negative premises, right? It's kind of dark the way that he's brought into this. I mean, the owner of the team, Rebecca, brings this American college gridiron or football coach over to coach soccer because she's bitter about her ex-husband's team that she's won in a divorce, and she wants to run it into the ground with a smile on her face. And Ted rises above that. And then, you have, what was the other one that she did? She has a couple things.
She hired the
photographer.
Yeah.
And then, setting up, so she hires a photographer to catch Ted with one of the star players' girlfriends looking like they're doing something wrong when they're not. And then she also sets up the one-on-one with Trent Krim, the independent, to have this, expose interview with him, and he wins Trent over. So for all of these sort of very purposeful actions that are done to discredit or set him up for failure, he is consistent in not wavering from that. And, while it's a very blunt lesson, I think there's, something you can take from that in terms of consistency when you apply that in the firehouse or with the crew of, don't let those things become distractions. Be who you are and stay on that path.
It's like, see, I brought him in. I brought in the deep thinker, right?
But I can appreciate that. Yeah. Thanks. Go ahead and step off screen for a second. I'll be back.
Well, I mean, but think about, and we talk about this in like our officer development class, where it's like, the scene from I Got a Camera Now, I Can Do It, where like Morpheus in the Matrix gives the red and the blue pill. You worked for you've worked for those officers, right? Where it's like, did he go red or blue this morning, or did she go red or blue this morning? And like, nobody likes working for that person. Like, you want somebody that's consistent. You want someone where you're going to get, what you're going to get. Because I don't think we really appreciate how, when you're riding that emotional wave, what kind of ripples that puts out in your firehouse. Like, you can be a positive bedrock for your folks, where they come in and they look at you and they go, okay, he's still doing the same thing. And like, to that end, like for me, if I feel like I'm off for a day, I'll tell one of my senior guys right away. I'm like, hey man, I'm off today. That way they know it's nothing to do with them. It's all about,
I probably announce it to the whole crew. It's one of those, like,
that's good.
Not today, guys. Today is great. Not the day.
Yeah. But then they know, they know it's not because of something they did.
Yeah, it's not personal. It's whatever struggle I have going on. But I'll because I love the smirk. right? And I call it the Ted Lasso smirk,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Like no matter what's being thrown at him, he gives that same, and it's that smile
Yeah.
almost of like, you're not bothering me at all.
Yeah.
And I referenced a lot of Jocko because I happened to listen to a Jocko podcast right after I finished binging it.
Yeah.
And Jocko calls it the normal face, right? Just give them the straight normal face where maybe the smirk's a little better. Maybe putting a little smile in there every time might get a little more reaction out of it, even if it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
inappropriate, so to speak.
It goes back to that knowing your people and making sure your people know you. That's definitely in that military world. They try to really separate themselves from the men, let's say the officers and the men. I do think it's probably changing just because society is changing with how that's going to be. But you have to have that relationship with them. And Ted obviously has that with Coach Beard. I mean, their movie lineness together is just like
the Back to the Future quote.
Yeah, right. Love it
Oh,
when
he
you
always
do,
gets me
Doc.
with the Doc Brown.
It's such a good one. But you have that, like you need to have that type of relationship. You know what I mean? And definitely I know with you guys too. And I mean, this is with everybody I know. It's movie lines. You know what I mean? And for me with my guys, and it's movie lines. I mean, we quote so much of it. It's unreal. But those are the relationships that you need to build to get that buy-in, to have the crew that you want to work with, and have them perform in the way you want to perform. And I think there's a definite thing in the fire service. Strategy and tactics is very important. How you deploy lines is very important. How you gear up is very important. But if we focus just on that, we lose this people side of it. Just like with, you have Ted who doesn't know offsides in soccer.
No, really? Tell me about it. What is it again?
How does it work again? I'm not really sure.
Again?
I think he described it in the news conferences. I'm going to do it like the U.S. Supreme Court described pornography. I know it when I see it. You don't know what it is, but you'll know it when you see it. But unless you played the game, you don't really understand it. You know what I mean? But you still have that tie-in with it.
What is it I keep telling you when I have somebody transfer in and they're like, which nozzle do you prefer? Which blah 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 do you prefer? I'm like, I don't care so long as you're good at whichever one it is. Whatever it is you choose, you better be really good at it.
whichever.
So let me ask you this: what when you have a new person come in, Rob? What sort of what are your expectations? Do you have like a top 3? Do you give them a page of what's your thing?
So really, I sit down and because I came into the role of when I came into the role as a captain, I came in with a first lieutenant who they ride the seat of a ladder truck. A multi-company, I have an engine ladder medic truck. Who is my senior, who was also a peer. So he was in the service before me, but we were firefighters together. And then as we've progressed, I've come back and I came in there and I was like a little hesitant. I didn't want this guy to think that I was coming in trying to take over the show or anything. So we sat down first. We had a conversation. When my new folks come in, it's more about how I operate. So I don't really put a lot of expectations on them other than, be respectful. Projects I love, like really take on something. I don't care what it is, take it on. Don't put blame. Like that's really one of the big things I say. I hate to hear blame the other shift, right? If it needs to be done, do it. I don't care who should have done it. If we're there that day, that means that we should do it. But really, I try to be really open about how I am. I'm very transparent. I'm not going to beat around the bush on anything. If something comes down the pipe that I don't like, I'm going to tell you that I don't like it, but then I'm going to tell you have to do it. I'm trying to think of my speech that I give them. I ask them what they expect out of me because I think that's a big one. Know their trucks, know them inside and out. I don't try to focus on the tactics part or any of that until we've established a really good relationship first.
That's great, but that's so funny because without focusing on the tactics part, you are solely focusing on that relationship that you're building with them. So that's the foundation to get all the other stuff. That's great.
Yeah, technically technically they should know the tactics. I mean, I know in Alexandria, in Roanoke too, you all run your own academies.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just started that where I work.
Nice.
It's good. Yeah, we're on academy. This last group was academy, I think class 3, that we've done in a row, and it creates a whole different employee. We're making employees.
That's fantastic.
So your speech definitely changed, with a new person coming in because they know the equipment, they know the tactics that we use where I work, on an engine. They know what we do. They've pulled our lines. They've done it the exact way we all mostly do it. So now, and two, to be honest with you, I don't really care what they know about tactics. That's my job. We're the tacticians. They're just there to help us along the way in the beginning. Obviously,
well, the what ifs are so endless, right? Like the what ifs are endless. The what ifs, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I can't prepare you for what's going to happen 2 minutes from now. I can kind of lay out hey, here's what I expect, but the what ifs are endless. What I say needs to happen isn't going to be what needs to happen. Yeah. That's the law of the fire service every time.
When we talk about this, it's funny. So I had 2 rookies. They have now over a year on, and both great guys, great firefighters, great, everything. But the one's first fire, like 3 a.m., typical. And we were pulling up the block, and I could see the room that was on fire because it was on the chauffeur's side. We could see it was one room well off as we're pulling past it. And when we get off, he asked me, he's like, "Lieutenant, which side of the street is the fire on?" And I'm like, "When you go around the back of the engine, it's the one with the flames blowing out of it." Because he wanted to know which line to pull, like the left or the right off the back. But like literally, and he even said, he's like, "I can't believe I asked you that. I'm so embarrassed." And I'm like, "Don't be embarrassed. It's sort of a valid question, but literally, when you walked around the back of the fire engine to just see where the fire was." Like,
well, that's because they were so focused on this, right? I mean, they're so focused on making sure all this is happening that they're not giving it the one over out the window.
That was our conversation walking from doors to the back of the rig. I'm like, just go bring the line to where the house is that's on fire. You'll be good.
Find me.
We've trained on this enough. Get to the front door. But that's something too with like a Ted thing where even in that situation, they're very much focused on this, whatever you want to call their focus. Where for us, we could be a little more like, "Hey, let's go to the one that's on fire, buddy. Just go out and play the game."
But to go back to Ted, he didn't come in there trying to teach soccer. Like he knew that they didn't need that. He knew the team pretty quick off just by, how he, the locker scene, the first locker room scene where he just walks in there and him and Coach Beard just stand, right? They just stand there and they just watch the interactions that are happening back and forth. They see what's happening to Nate. They see what kind of person Jamie is. They see what kind of person Roy is. He didn't come in saying, "I'm going to show you how to play soccer." He came in and really quickly learned. He's the maestro of puppets, so to speak. Not really, but that's a poor analogy. But you know what I mean? I mean, he knew that he didn't have to teach them soccer. He had to teach them how to be people.
How to be a team. How to be people and how to be a team. Right. And I think, the dynamic between the number one sort of prodigy star, the young guy, Jamie Tart, and Roy Kent is really interesting because the way that Ted facilitates that relationship could be very similar to what we see in the fire service, where you have, someone who, was a ball of fire and a superstar in their day. And, this is a career that we're in for 20, 30 years. So, they're not taking those licks the same way. And I like how, like, one of the quotes that Ted says is, you don't need to be best friends to be great teammates. And, I don't like it when people come in and they're like, "Well, I just got to work here for 24 hours. Oh man, I need a little more than that.
Just a touch more.
I need a little more than that.
Just a bit.
But that idea of I can put up with anybody for 24 hours. It's like, well, but we're a small department, so I still need you to have some investment in folks here. And I really like the way that Ted approached, he just wears down Roy. Like, Roy is his project. He just, grinds him down with his positivity. And Roy, of course, just explodes every time Ted hits one of his buttons. F-bomb, F-bomb, F-bomb. But the scene that I love the most, other than, well, I guess the first one is the book where he gives him A Wrinkle in Time. What am I? Am I the princess or whatever? But the part that I really like is when he's at the bar. I think he's at the bar at the fundraiser in the show, and he asks Roy. He says, "What were you like when you were 23?" Yeah. And this is something that as a fire officer, I think I've been working on, and I've been getting better about, as a way to use my people, or not as a way to get to know my people. It's a technique that I use to get to know my people, which is asking more questions as opposed to giving answers right away. So, I mean, Ted could come right in and go, "This is what you need to do to be friends with Jamie or to make this team better." But he doesn't do that. He puts the bumpers up and gives Roy, some boundaries, but then he lets Roy get to the answer on his own by prompting him and asking good questions at the right time, as opposed to just giving him the answer. And because of that, we have this, we see this relationship develop, but we have a much better team output at the end. So
yeah, and
I think that crosses over really well into the fire service.
100%.
And the Jamie Tart storyline is epic, and it's definitely not over.
Yeah.
Which I think is, again, as a fan of the show now and a fan of Ted, like, I can't wait to see where that goes, because you're gonna hopefully see Jamie become that person that he really is, where he's not scoring goals and going me, literally me. I mean,
is he saying meat?
Oh no, he's saying me. That makes so much more sense now than me.
Meat.
But the with Roy too, and just bringing Roy along, it definitely helps to have a Keeley involved for sure, which we're not gonna have in the fire service to help us with our people. But that senior man mentality where
what I'm writing down right now, actually.
What, you're not gonna have a Keeley? Like, you're trying to find a Keeley?
No, the senior firefighter, the person who is the Roy, that and I think I referenced that. I can't remember.
You did somewhere in here. Yeah, I have all your stuff highlighted, Rob, but it's just, again, like, I knew we were going to jump around, so I have stuff in case
I just have it and I keep scrolling up and down on it. But that senior firefighter who is going to be bitter, just because, I mean, there was a time that I was very bitter, so I decided to go to the training center. Boy, that'll change you. But knowing that you need that person's experience, you need that person's understanding of how it all works, and you just need to get them past that little bit of grumph that they have. And like you said, Wells, that if you give them those bumpers and make them work between them, they're going to bounce off a few times, and it's probably not going to be very much fun for them or you. But I think if you can get them to finally get to the end goal, or click over a new game, for a pinball reference there. Nobody's old enough to remember that anymore, right? Then you're really going to benefit from it. Yeah, then you're really going to benefit from it. And it's almost like you start a new game. They're going to become a whole new person for you.
Yeah, we keep seeing Ted have all these. We see him have these challenging conversations with people over and over and over. And how often do we get right up to that in the fire service or in our firehouses and then back off because, you know what, I don't know if it's worth it. But there's positivity on the other side of those hard conversations. It's just, are you willing to engage? I'm not somebody that likes conflict. Like, that's been one of the harder parts for me. It's like, I'm a peacemaker. Like, so leaning into those conversations is really challenging. But the way that Ted does it, where the authenticity that he gives it, where he knows that he's having this challenging conversation because it's good for the team.
Yeah.
And it's worth it because it's good for the team. It's like that Doc Rivers quote from the playbook that I think you had talked about that, but again, I'm going to do what's right for the team. It may not be right for you, and it may not be right for me as the coach, but if it's right for the team, we're going to do this. And a conversation that Ted keeps having with all these different characters is a great example of that.
I just had that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's always hard, it's never going to be easy, and it's one of the things that we just have to figure out the best way to do it. And I think Ted goes about it, again, in this fictional world, but in really good ways, because he has that positivity to him. And part of the Roy conversation in this really isn't even much about leadership, but it's when guys in the fire service are getting towards the end of their career or their end of their time of service, and just like Roy, they're scared. Like, what's next? What else can I do when I don't have this? Because this is so important to us, just like a game. Keeley says it really early on with Roy, where it's like, "Oh, I'm Roy Kent. I'm always angry because I play a game for a living."
Yeah, I love that.
I'm about as bad as Roy Kent is with impersonations, but like, you think about that, and dude, I can compare. Like, I can make every comparison to this show.
That was actually really good.
But you think about that as in a guy towards the end of their career, and that fear, and having to help them transition into that. It's the exact opposite of dealing with the kids, as we call them. Now, I'm not at the end of my career. I don't even know what it's going to be like, but someone's got to help them. So that's my job. Whether they're even a higher rank above me, we need to start to prepare for that, how we're going to get there.
Do you get them to just stop showing up for the game? Because that's what Roy was doing in the beginning, right? He was just showing up, going through the motions.
Being slow, as
slow,
Nate said, being slow.
Which is fine. I'll take slow. No, that's not true, because when I coach soccer, I want speed. But, how do you get them to understand, I don't need you to go through the motions till the end of your career. I need you to step up and make sure that those who are coming behind you are really ready. The long game, I know we've referenced that before a lot.
Yeah.
5-5-5, and that's something that I looked at here, was that Ted isn't looking at how do I win the next game. He's looking at relegation for the first season, which, if you don't know what that is, it's basically you get kicked out of the big leagues and go back to the minors. He's looking at that as the end goal for the season, staying out of that. And you have to prepare your people to not relegate, which I think can happen. You have that bitter person in that firehouse. Next thing you know, you're all in the minors. You follow them right down the hole.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Definitely in that hole. And even where Ted says, like, we're in the Premier League now. What's the league do we go? What league do we go down to? And Coach Freeman says the Championship League. Well, that sounds pretty good to me. Like, I like the Championship League.
Champion sounds good.
But yeah, you can't let someone bring you down that hole. And I think too with Roy, Roy definitely towards the middle of the show wanted to bring Jamie up, and Jamie just wasn't ready for it. But then how he tells Sam, when Sam's like, I was just laying here because everybody was so excited, so angry. And he's like, all right, this is what you're going to do. Like, he gives him the playbook for how to legitimately fake his injury in a football game.
And hype the crowd in the meantime.
Yeah,
that's exactly it, right? Such an epic thing to do, and so much.
And he also does the throw TV. Sometimes you gotta, right? Isn't Roy the one who says sometimes you gotta throw a TV?
Sometimes you gotta break a TV. Keep breaking TVs or something like that. Throwing TVs. Yeah. When he does that, But those are things that he's bringing those younger people up, and that's something that when we talk about the senior man or the senior officer, you have to be in the game until that last day you walk out the door. You know what I mean? There's no, my last chief always said that. He's like, I'm in this game until that morning at 8:00 when we leave here and go to the bar. And that's what you have to always be in our career, for sure.
That's hard. It's a hard road to follow.
Well, it's like a loss. You know what I mean? It's just like when they lost with Ted. Ted. Well, I don't know. We're going to see what next season brings, but we all have those hard moments. You're going to have those bad days. I know we've all we have this group here has definitely all spoken to each other after an extremely bad shift, because you're going to have that, and then you need to bounce back. But again, taking care of your people is the key part in that. Taking care of yourself and your people, I should say.
Well, and it makes it easier to bounce back, right? Because they all understand it. You know, like if you're open, like I said, I like to be transparent. If you're open with them, if you let them know uh, that you're not going to be that black and white, that you're going to let the gray mix in there,
Yeah.
they're going to bounce back. They're not going to dwell over it as hard as you might, because you might take a little more pressure on yourself than you should. But you know, they're going to move on just as quick as you move on, because you have built that relationship and they understand what's going on a little better. They don't expect you to be, yes sir, captain, blah 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 blah.
I think it's my favorite part. You know, and Wells, you've been in the same firehouse for a long time now. You know what I mean? So you've seen a lot of things there. But you know, when you're one of the guys just said it the other day. You know, we're humming. He's like, we're humming. That's what it comes down to. This ship is
cool.
humming.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I guess we are. You know what I mean? Like, there's problems. I'm not gonna. Trust me, it's not. It's just like we say. It's like a family. Like, but we're humming. Like for the most part, we're humming. And when it comes down to doing the job, I really feel like we're humming, because we've had that group of people together, kind of like you have, aside from adding a whole nother company in, which, again, unique.
No, which has been great. I mean, we have some great personalities that have come in. We've got some great youth that's in there. It's positive for us. It's definitely a good thing. So.
It's what keeps us coming to work every day, and I think that's what keeps Ted waking up, meeting Coach Beard, who he's probably the most underrated character in the
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he knows the game. He's the coach.
Yeah.
He learned the game. He is Ted's sounding board. He is the player's sounding board, I would suppose. He's got the whole chess thing going on. I'm trying to think of like what else he has.
Well, I think
he's tactician, you know, but go ahead, bro.
No, I was just saying it shows that you have to have somebody, and you know, I'm fortunate that I have Pip, who's completely out of the picture as far as what's happening here in Southwest Virginia, but I have somebody here in Southwest Virginia that's in my department that is that person that I bounce things off of, and then they in return bounce them off of me. And if you don't have that, man, you're missing out. You got to find that person.
And I think, you know, I think it's great when you have someone that's in your firehouse that you can do that with, but that's not always the case. And I do remember, like, when I first got promoted a while ago, I was fortunate to get promoted with a couple people on my list, and we started calling each other at night, like after dinner when things were winding down and before, like, you know, that 10 and 11 o'clock call hits. And that was really valuable. And we started to build up that trust. But a lot of times when you first get promoted and you go back to your room or wherever your alone spot is to do your reports or sit in front of the computer, that can be lonely. If you came from a firehouse where it's, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 firefighters that are all, you know, humming, that are going and gelling and moving along, to get put in that officer role can be really challenging. And like, I think the takeaway from the Beard and Ted relationship between the two of them is, if you don't have that, and you don't have that with somebody on your crew, whether it's your senior firefighter or another officer in the firehouse, pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And it's like for you guys, it doesn't have to be someone that's in your firehouse, but especially in that first 6 months, that can feel lonely. And that's a real thing. Yeah.
2 years, 3 years. Maybe till you retire.
Yeah. But having that sounding board and somebody that, you know, you can kind of lean on and have a little back and forth with, man, that's so valuable as
and that's what he does with Coach
officer.
Right? It's like he just says things, right? He'll just be, and I love the scene where Coach Beard doesn't agree, right? And he keeps
he goes off and he goes to town. Yeah.
Separating himself, and it speaks volumes, right? He's like one of those, like, look, no. No. And sometimes you need to hear that, right? Like, you need to have that, oh wow, I'm an idiot moment, and you're not going to say that to yourself. You have to have somebody else kind of.
Yeah. I think too that Coach Beard scene too is we need to play to win.
Right.
Like, Ted was just like, okay, we're good. Right. No, we need to win. You
Right.
need to.
Well, he was letting him know he needs to elevate, right? You need
Yep.
to stop in that groove, which, Wells, you said it earlier, or maybe Pip, I can't remember now. It's the show is this long, but what's happening is really going to take this long.
Forever. Yeah. You could pull so much out of this. Like, it again goes back to that initial thing we said, where like you don't always have to be learning from the fire service. You don't always have to be learning from the military. You can learn things about leadership from loads of people. And it's like I talked about with Kim with the playbook, and learning from coaches, successful coaches. I mean, it's
I love that show. That's a whole nother thing we could do.
Oh, dude, I could do. Rob wants to do the Goonies though, so if you want to jump
I
in,
want to do the Goonies.
Size up.
I'm in.
I'll wear the headband for that one.
Hey, sidebar with the playbook, were you super disappointed when you got to episode 5 and it was over? I was like,
yeah, I'm like, there should be more. Why are there not more? Like, why yeah.
Why am I going into the trailer for the
there's so many more coaches. There's so many more stories. I want to hear like how, but too with all of those coaches, just like with Ted as a coach, it's about the person. I mean, obviously there's tact in the game and but you need your people. I need my people. We not just we need our people to trust us with their lives. So we have to have that strategy and tactics, but we need the people first. And even if I look at 555, because I compare a lot of things to 555, it was about the people. It wasn't about so much the fitness. It was about the people doing the fitness.
What's that? It still is. It
still is. Yeah. Stop with the was. When we started, it was, and it still is today. Is that a thing? But you think about this, like Ted Lasso, it's all about people. That whole show, and that's why it transcends to our wives, to anybody who wants to watch this show.
No, it has great crossover. So we talked just a minute ago about feedback that Coach Beard gave to Ted, but if we can stay in the feedback realm for a while, I want to talk about one of my favorite parts of the whole show, which is Ted takes Nate, the kit man. Can we go, Nate?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude, I'm ready. So this is going to be the end. Then. This is going to be the last new Ted Lasso topic. But I'm just saying, we're starting it. We're already over the hour. Podcast,
I know.
But it's okay. I know. But this is going to be, we're going to see how long this one goes. All right. We're at an hour and 10 minutes or so. Okay.
Well, I'm not leaving until we talk about this one thing with Nate. And I'll tell you why though. My favorite part is when Ted takes Nate, the kit man, the guy that washes the laundry for the team. He takes him to this fundraiser ball for sick children the whole team's at. And Nate shows up at his apartment and he's wearing his father's old suit. And he's like, "Oh, I hope you don't mind that I'm here early." And Ted says, No, it's fine. He goes, "Hey, Nate, are you the kind of guy that would like to know if you had like food in your teeth or something like that?" And Nate goes, "Oh, yes, I definitely would." He goes, "Okay, that suit looks terrible on you." And gives him that feedback. And Nate was green-lighted it and was good with it, and they went and got him a new suit. But that moment was so cool where, a lot of times we give people feedback, and we do this all the time in the fire service, right? Be curious, not judgmental. So I'm curious. Hey, are you ready for feedback? Yes, I'm ready for feedback. Okay, here we go. If you talk to like 9 out of 10 firefighters, most of them are like, "I wish he would have just told me what was on his mind." Wow. But then when you're on the receiving end, "Hey man, why are you coming at me?" "Well, I wanted to give you feedback." So I was working with a new firefighter that I'd never worked with before over the weekend, and we were doing some hose evolution stuff. And I'd met her like an hour or two before, and we went down to the burn building to do some evolutions. And we were working on some technique stuff, and I had an opportunity to give her feedback. And I stopped and I thought about that scene, and I said, "Hey, I have feedback for you." I said, "And that's why we're down here." And she goes, "Yeah." I go, "But how do you like to get your feedback? Do you want it kind of like buttered up and easy, or are you good if I come right at you with it?" And she goes, "No, just let me have it." I said, "Okay, so here's what I'm noticing." And then I gave her the feedback, and we had a great drill anyway, but adding in that step, kind of like what we talked about before just going right to this, I feel like it helped us. Like, she knew that I was coming at it from a place of I want us to be better.
Yeah.
Like, we've never worked together, but I want, I want you to know what I know. And I think I thought about that moment before I did it because of that episode from the show where, I just really liked it, where he's giving Nate that feedback where it's like, are you ready for this? Here it comes,
Well, it's the radio pause. It's right back. Like, I mean, we go
Yeah, absolutely,
an
Rob.
hour that Pip reminded us that we're already into. It goes right back to that. It's the radio pause, except now you're seeing how you want to, slide it in there, or if
right,
you wanna bang them on the head with it.
Right.
I feel like that's a whole class, like the radio pause. Like you may have just, Rob, you may have just, No, you could teach it with me. Like you could totally teach it with me. I'm not stealing it from you.
I'll be your videographer. You know that.
but right, that's it. And so Nate, again, like Nate, I think is the ultimate fire service like comparison. Right? Nate's the kit man. He's basically the guy that does the wash.
Yeah.
But he is from England. He knows the game. He knows the team. He knows the locals. He knows everything Ted needs to learn. And no one has given a shit about Nate his entire career. Right. Let's just say we don't know. So we know a little bit about his family life, but not so much. But Nate's just that guy. He's the team manager, for lack of a better term, for us. And no one even knows his name until Ted asks. He's like, no one's asked my name before.
The long pause was great, where he's like, what's your name? Just silence.
Right.
Like, oh, you really know my name.
There's another part where he says, he's like, Nate. And he's like, you know my name. And he's like, well, you're going to be my default Nate until we get another one around here. So basically, if I say Nate, I'm talking to you type thing. And he takes Nate, and eventually Nate gets elevated to a coach position, not before some really good feedback about the team and about everything like that. So
that goes back to what you were saying, Wells, is that Nate delivered it in the way that it needed to be delivered at that time, right? Ted recognized that it wasn't the time to ask if you mind if somebody tells you something's in your teeth. He knew that right then and there they needed that direct from left field, right field, whatever you want to say. They needed that slap to the face almost.
They needed to hear a different voice in that moment than his to separate it and to get the message through.
With brutal honesty.
Good time to use your other officers, right? Like if you have officers,
absolutely,
hey, you're stepping up. You're going to say this for me, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
Or again, too, that's that senior man. I've definitely had that talk with some guys in my firehouse, maybe where I'm like, hey, listen, I can't handle this situation. Because if I handle this situation, it's not going to go well, for some people. And I don't want that to happen. But if that's what's got to happen, that's what's got to happen. But if you handle this situation, hey, I don't really know what's going on. You know what I mean? And I think that's what Ted did in a really good way with that, where the team needed that pep talk, and Roy needed to hear, your strength is, or your anger is your superpower. And that kind of stuff. And you're slow, and you're too full of yourself. And my man, Danny Rojas is like, oh, fair, true.
Thank you. Yeah.
Football is life. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Danny Rojas.
Oh my God. I could go on about Danny Rojas. Danny Rojas is now, we're going to go even longer. We're still going back to Nate, but Danny Rojas is all of us on day one.
100%.
Maybe we're not running around singing our name, but we're all that.
Maybe day 3. Day 1 was a bit rough. Maybe day 3.
Day 1, we were really scared. But when you're getting into the fire service, you were that excited. You were that passionate. You want to give joy away for free type stuff. You want to give whatever you can do to do this. Somehow that gets stymied in a lot of people. And it's something that we can't let happen.
But I'll go back. Like I said, I had that bitterness, right? So I went to the training center. Why did I go to the training center, right? Because what do you see every day at the training center? That Danny Rojas.
Joy.
Right? You see that, you're paying me to do this? Are you kidding me? Right? And so you kind of need that as a recharge, and you have to find that. It may not be, I'm not saying, no, actually.
Don't go to the training center.
No, I'm telling everybody, you have to do it. You need to do it.
No, you should. It's the best.
But if you can't get to the training center, you need to find your Danny Rojas for sure. You got to find your spark of, oh, that's why we're here. That's right.
And he was that good. That was the good part about Danny
Right.
Rojas was
Yeah.
he backed everything that he said up about himself. And you have the whole exorcism episode that goes on with Danny
Yeah.
Rojas that I would imagine there's some firehouses out there that have probably done something along those lines to get the badness out of their firehouse.
I
I think it's a great idea.
I can speak the truth to that. Yeah,
Oh, there was
I can take you to the firehouse where
to get rid of the spirits or to get rid of just the bad.
there was a lot of events that seemed to occur one right after the other. So they actually had a I don't know how much I should talk about this. But I'm here
No,
now.
this is probably the best part of the episode. Like, let's have it.
It's the end. Listen, nobody's listening anyway by this point. So
They actually had a priest come out and bless the station.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And so far, it seems to have worked. So I don't know
Holy
what
cow.
I don't know what sort of demons and ghosts were there, but they were there. So.
Whatever happens, I mean, that's what you need. I mean, who would think, where it's like, with the Kim room, where it's Ted, do you? And we said this with Kim. Ted, do you believe in ghosts? I do.
I do.
Importantly, I want them to believe in themselves.
Believe in themselves.
Good way to end, I guess. I don't know.
No, we're not done. We can't end on that. We have to talk more about Nate. We have to talk about Nate because there's something that Wells brought out in the notes that we shared, and it's about, when you have those young guys, they have ideas. They are people. They have opinions. They have ideas. They have everything.
The person, not the position. Yeah.
Yeah. Granted, we may not, always want to take them, or I gladly tell them I'm more than willing to listen to any of your ideas, and if they suck, I'm going to tell you they suck. But we have to let them give us that feedback, and I think that's something in the fire service a lot of people do not do.
Well, that's what I tell my folks. I tell them, I'll go with your plan, absolutely. But when it doesn't work, we're not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
It's one of those, like, that's the end of it. Like, I have a very strong firefighter who likes to try the new things. And I always joke with him that the only thing he's good at is fighting fire. But I tell him, he'll come to me and be like, hey, I want to switch up the bumper lay. Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. But the first time it doesn't work, it's over. It's one of those, like, well, I shouldn't say the first time, but the first time it screws up majorly, it's over.
A lot of times that's a great learning lesson, though, because they, without experience, they see something and they try something and it works for them, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for the whole.
For the team.
And for the team, exactly. And that's a good learning experience for them. It's something you have to let them then try to do.
Nate's play. So to go back to Nate, I mean, that's his play, right? Like, he lets him try his play to see if it works.
Oh yeah,
the whole way that's such a great scene where he's like, does anybody have any ideas? And then Nate's like unfurls his paper. And he's like, is this yours? He's like, he goes, I'm sorry, I have a hard time hearing people that don't believe in themselves.
Yeah.
Is this yours? And then he says yes, and then he like whispers yes, and he's like, whoa, stop yelling, But no, the idea that you should not have an ego in this job where you can't find inspiration or ideas or a second view from another person, regardless of their time in the service. I mean, I tell my guys, I'm like, if you see something, kick it up. I mean, I'm not trying to go crew resource management on us here, but just like when, the point is that everybody has buy-in in the outcome of this event. And it doesn't mean just because, I've worn my shirt or helmet for a certain amount of time that I have all the answers. So the idea, not at all.
I don't know what offsides is, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly. But I know that, I work in training to make sure that my guys have their eyes up and not at their feet. So when their eyes are up and they see something that I don't see, I want to know about it. And if we don't create a culture of allowing them to provide that feedback, then we're going to miss that. And that's a missed opportunity. Rob, I'm talking with my hands. I must.
You may be from New Jersey, Wells. No.
I don't know.
You may be from New Jersey, not Vermont.
What do I do? What
You
do I
spent
do?
a good amount of time here.
It's funny that you said eyes up, right? Because
Yeah.
if you, I don't know, did you do soccer at all? Never. I know Pitt.
It was short and tragic, and then I transitioned to another sport. But yeah,
mine went the other way. The other
Okay.
sport was short and tragic, so I found soccer. And one of the things that I always taught my kids when I coached kids was eyes up, right? Like you.
Yeah.
That's where this is where it happens.
It's not down here at the ground.
Yeah, you can't keep watching your feet. Like I love the cool things you're doing with dribbling the ball, but dribbling the ball doesn't score the goal. It's using the whole team.
Yeah.
You have to see what the whole team's doing to be able to score that goal.
Yeah.
So you gotta have those eyes up. So I love to hear that. That was great that it ties back into Ted Lasso being a soccer coach.
It goes right in.
That's a good rap. Yeah.
It's a good like first day speech, like eyes up, like that you just picked up.
I wrote it down. Like it's stolen. Sorry.
No, do it, man. Do it. I mean, I think, again, all the good stuff that we've gotten is from people before us that that we listened to and paid attention to, and were kind enough to try and make us better. And I think that's, we look at the way that sometimes we have certain departments and certain crews that treat new folks. It's like, man, why don't we treat rookies the way that the professional sports treats them, where it's like they're lifted up, and I'm not saying we need to put every new person on a pedestal, but we also don't need to be like locking them in closets either. We should take that youth, that knowledge, that exuberance, that joy, the Danny Rojas joy, and pump that into our team to maximize it and use that as a way to push the team forward, as opposed to I just hate the shut up rookie, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is a pretty common sense job.
Everybody has an opinion. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where like we have to work with this. We have to make this better. And everybody likes to say like, oh, make it better than you found it. Well, if we keep doing the same things over and over again.
Yeah, you got it.
Is that going to happen? I'm a little confused here. Now, look, like, I mean, I clean toilets, I wash dishes. We all do those things as we're coming up along the line. But at the same time, when it comes to like, well, what do you think about this? Does this work? You want to try this? You tell me. Got my good buddy Ron Smith is all about mental snapshots. You take mental snapshots of things. I have way more mental snapshots than someone with 2 years on the job. And I have no problems telling them that. But I'm like, you need to take your mental snapshots too, because you may see this differently than I do. And that's where we're going to grow together. I just have a boatload more.
That's the one thing that I have a hard time with, and I catch myself, is awareness, right? Like you said, the snapshots allow me to build a picture really quick. The collage, I guess, goes together really quick. And I'm trying to get them to understand that, right? Like they should always be looking at this and this and this and this and stop with it goes back to eyes up. Stop focusing on one and really start looking and snapping those pictures so you can put it together. It's hard, but you got to do it.
It's crazy how we came up with all of these things here from this show. That is just like, I didn't watch every episode tonight, but now I have a feeling I'm going to go back. And it's funny because Finn asked me today, he's like, you're doing another size up about Ted Lasso? He's like, can I watch this? And I'm like, I think you can. There's definitely some Keely stuff in there that I'm like, oh man, now I'm going to have to explain some things that.
Well, you do like I do my oldest. All right, I'm not telling you can't be in here, but here's what's going to happen, right? There's going to be some of this in there, and there's going to be some of this in there. If you want to talk about it, it's going to be after the show. Not while we're watching it. It's going to be after.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for Finn to ask me those questions, but there's so much to learn from it, and it's such a great show. What do you got, Rob? I know you got something else.
Yeah.
So can we not talk about Nate enough? We can still talk about Nate.
Well, no, like you said, when you go back and watch it, you go back and watch it. The thing I picked up on was the slogan, right? The I don't even know how to say.
Oh yeah, you got it. I highlighted it.
Firmus Victoria, which if you start to Google it, you're going to find that it's basically on the path to victory or the steps to victory. So if you take everything that we've talked about, right, and make those the steps or the path, it's going to be a win. You might not see the end, you might not see the trophy raised or whatever, but if you've laid that foundation for those, for Roy and for Jamie Tart and the whole team, man, they're going to get to raise it one day, or hopefully somebody right immediately after them.
It's all about the path, right?
Yeah,
it's not about the victory.
No,
it's about the path. And in the fire service, it's definitely about the path, because in reality, we don't have victories. I mean, we put fires out, we save lives, you know, we do these things, but it's the path that gets you there. Yeah, that's the small part, right?
Yeah.
Most of the people listening to this are on the job or volunteers or whatever they are, and they understand that. They have to understand that.
If you don't, it's time to start.
It's time to. No, it is. You're right, Rob. If you don't, it's time to. It's about your path there. It's about your 24 that you're working, or your 48, wherever you are. You know, and like you said, the biggest part of this is the people together.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's my favorite part about the path. And I know because of 555, because of Andy Fredericks, you know, Wells, you have met, just like we have met, people from around the world now, who are on this path together. And that's the happiest path for me, I think. I love my department, love my crew, love everything, but expanding that path has been huge.
It's the recharge. It's the recharge.
It's absolutely the recharge, and that's the best reason, you know, even if you feel like, you know, you've seen a class or you've done a class, like challenge yourself to get out and go to some conferences or go to any one of the small ones or the big ones or whatever, because you're going to meet folks, you're going to be engaged, and it's going to be the recharge. I mean, we hear that all the time every year, man, this is the recharge I need. And then if we cancel a year, oh my gosh, I need my recharge. Okay. But it's, but I think back to the episode you did with Tracy Pip, where you talked about like improvement, not perfection. You know, that's part of the path, is that, you know, switching that mentality from individual improvement to team improvement as a fire officer, as a informal leader in your firehouse, and like really embracing that as like, hey, we just need to keep improving. And, you know, just like we do in fitness, you know, maybe not me specifically, but you guys, like,
I was training
but it's the daily grind, you know, it's that consistency, it's the grind, and it's that focus on that path towards improvement. I think that, you know, we see that in this microcosm in the 10 episodes with Ted, and in a positive way. And, you know, you guys do it. And, you know, I think people need to remember that they can do it too.
And the fact that they didn't win, they got relegated. So now we have a whole nother season of like, I don't even know. I mean, I know what relegation means, but what are they going to do? You know, how are they going to do this? You know, they're going to lose some players. You hope not, but Ted's going to have some new players to deal with, I'm sure. The fans are going to.
That's the fire service, right? You retirement, movement, promotion.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to lose folks. The new folks are going to come in. Some are going to have experience, some aren't. Right? It's the same ups and downs.
Well, that's one of those things too that I think the leaders of the past, they were about perfection. You know, even though they kind of were like they always said they weren't, but they were. They were writing big thick books, and they had all the answers in their books, and whatever you want to say. And I'm not talking bad about them, but they were chasing perfection. You know, where they really should have just been always chasing improvement.
Yeah.
And for us now, as that generation of people who knows one day may write that big book, I want it to just be about improving and looking for the next step. You know, which is a Ted Lasso. He's just looking for the future, and we didn't even talk about his marriage.
Believe,
yeah. Believe. Hit it. I just want everybody eyes up.
Believe.
Look, and he hits it right. That little.
He's got fences, but you gotta hop right over them.
You know,
that's a great quote.
I love that quote.
You know which one too? I wanted to really now. Like, I don't really care how long this goes anymore. But where is it? Hold on.
We're gonna have to do an intermission, man.
We're not. You gotta do an intermission. You gotta run and get a refill. I packed my own. I packed again. So. But what's he say? It's kind of. Oh no! I moved it over here now. Where is it? Taking on a challenge is a lot like riding a horse. Yeah. If you're comfortable while you're doing it, you're probably doing it wrong. And that's the fire. To me, that's the fire service. Once you get comfortable in any of this, you're wrong.
Oh yeah. Ooh.
I learned that in paramedicine. Like I was never comfortable as a paramedic. Like I'm way more uncomfortable than I am as a firefighter because it was just who knows what I'm gonna roll up to next type thing.
Yeah.
But I like it. I like all the things we've talked about. Is there anything more on Nate too, real quick, before we end tonight?
I know. I felt like we were going to go deep on Nate.
Easy, man. This is not that podcast. We're not.
Never that podcast.
But you think
I felt like we were going to deep dive on Nate.
I
that still doesn't sound good.
Keep looking. I'll be right back.
Yeah. So we are going to go because he's running. But I think with Nate, there's so many things you could teach someone new coming in. When we talk about these younger kids coming in, this new generation, and Wells with Rob running away real quick. You and I were that generation.
Yeah.
We were young kids together, and we were in fires as young kids together on a hand line in a fire. Think about those days between you and I, as opposed to what it would be like now. And I'm like, oh my God.
I can't believe they let us do some of that stuff, but I mean,
I would say when you look at that, like, you can't believe that. And that's Nate. Ted took this younger kid who was kind of timid, kind of not there, and he built him up really quickly, which is hard to do in the fire service for sure. It's going to take longer, but we have to do that with these folks because, like Rob said, we're getting them now. I think our youngest employee in my career was like 19, maybe 20 or so.
Yeah,
but it's still young.
No, I have a new guy that came in, and I think he's 19, just turned 20, or just turned 20. And again, just ball of fire, great, squared away. Can't say enough about him, but I think about, there's a quote that my dad said once where someone's like, what do you do when you have a highly motivated person like that? And he's like, get out of their way. So Nate's an example of someone that has a little bit of a hard time believing in himself, but he's motivated, whereas Roy needs to believe in himself again, but isn't as motivated. So it's interesting how Ted motivates each of these characters independently, but I think Nate's a good crossover to that joy and that exuberance that you see of someone who realizes what they can become once you allow them to have that space to grow. And Ted facilitates that. He doesn't inhibit this kit man's ability to provide feedback and to provide input and to be part of the team as opposed to just an accessory to the team. And that's pretty inspiring, of the ego that he doesn't have. He puts his ego aside, and Beard, as his right hand, immediately recognizes that and also steps out of the way and encourages it. And they listen. And that's something that, I know when I was newly promoted, like I wanted to demonstrate competence by showing, but listening is the harder skill, and letting other people do that talking and then listening to it and maybe implementing some of it is where I think you get more of a, maybe more traction when it comes to the team building and then alternate ideas and other perspectives.
Nate is all about the other perspective, and a lot of times he's in the right perspective for sure. Especially when it comes to the game. I mean, but that end of just knowing your people, putting your people first, and I think that to me is the biggest takeaway from the show, is just building the people up from there. And how Ted goes about that is just classic.
And it's knowing his name, and it's calling him by name. Hi Nate, how are you? Nate the Great. Nate the Great. And
I could never be as positive as Ted Lasso is. Like it's just not me. But I could try. And if I keep trying, like that's the key.
That's the path to victory.
That's
See what you did there.
I do see what you did there.
Well, you know, Wells, like you ended, because Pip shared notes. You ended yours like, let's see here. This means not having an ego about the top dog or being the boss. Don't overlook good ideas and critical feedback just because it came from someone in a different position. And then I ended mine just to show you we're all on the same page here. I ended
And
mine.
you didn't see this either. I saw this. They didn't see these.
Like he shared them together, so we didn't see it prior. I ended mine on that's what makes a team. The little nuances you learn about each other or your profession. Constant growth is the key to success anywhere. It's the same sentence almost, just in a different
in a different way. But that's again, like I said, when this whole thing came up, and I'm like, Wells, let's do one about this. I'm like, I think Rob should be in this too. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where we have so much, you can learn so much. And I think as we're kind of wrapping up here, because we're definitely, I don't even know, maybe longer podcasts are better. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure this whole thing out. But, you know,
there's a certain someone who does them for 3 hours. I'm just saying.
There is a certain someone who does them for 3 hours. He not only does them for 3 hours, but there's a man who is mostly silent the entire time in the room, except for epic movie quotes and an occasional question about like what a military thing is. And I do hope to have him on this show someday because I got to meet him. Awesome dude, Echo Charles.
Yeah,
anyway,
that'd be cool.
It would be, dude. When I mean like a great 5-minute conversation, it's probably one of the best ones I've ever had in my life was with Echo Charles. And I'll keep that one to myself, but if I could have him on here as a guest, it would be cool. But you have that thing where you go longer and now see, now I'm getting into podcasting, but it changes. And now I totally forgot what we were getting to.
Constant growth, key to success. What else? Top dog being the boss.
See, Echo Charles told me about nanoseconds of quietness. You can't have that. But it's hard too when you're not in the same room with people. Where if you're in the same room, it flows so much better. Where when you're doing this Zoom thing, it's much harder. Because my hands are in my face now. But you know, I think when we compare the fire service to Ted Lasso, there's so many leadership lessons we've talked about already. But let's end this on a big note, and you can do a quote. You can do just whatever you want to do to kind of end your Ted Lasso fire service comparison. Who wants to go first? That's the easiest way. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I am.
Does it have to be?
There's only 2 of us, Rob. You're putting us on Pip. You're putting us on the spot.
He's Rob, I'm Pip, which you.
I know. I gotta.
You actually knew Rob.
I knew you as Rob.
You did before Pip really was anything.
I can go there.
Does it have to be Ted Lasso?
It doesn't have to be Ted Lasso. No, I think
so. My work email has a quote that I really lean heavy on, and it's Aristotle's. Now I can't remember it because I'm pulling a blank. We are what we repeatedly do. Therefore, success is not an act; it's a habit. And I really lean heavy on that, and that you have to make the habit. You can't just have the one thing happen, one great moment, and think that you're going to ride that out. You got to continually to build on it and make it a habit of every day. Just like we got done talking about every day, try to make something better. Whether it's in you, whether it's in the department, whether it's in your community, whether it's in the relationships you have, wherever they are, you got to take that step. So I think that's a pretty good one.
And this year means more than anything.
It's been hard this year. Like I will admit, I'm guilty of not doing a lot of the things that I preach. But at least I can recognize them, right? I don't
recognize them rapidly. I think that's another thing that we all learned, or hopefully a lot of people learned about themselves this year, is that
smirk.
Once you recognize it, or someone tells you about it, one of your sounding boards tells you about it, or you sound off to them, and then Ted Lasso appears in our lives, and I'm like, oh, such a win in 2020 for once, at least, aside from liberation. What do you got, Wells?
I think I'll take it full circle talking about what we did in the beginning, which is I think what I enjoy most about the show is it's just an alternate option or an alternate perspective on what being a leader could be like in the fire service. If you want to make that comparison of, being able to stay positive, being able to look for the positive in your people and always be thinking about the team, and the judgmental thread that runs through the fire service needs to go away. But one of my favorite quotes from Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is, "Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently hold in thought, for the human spirit is colored by such impressions." And when we think about Ted makes a choice. We have a choice about what our attitude is, and we have a choice about our actions. And we have a choice about where we focus our thought. And if we focus positively and forward, like that golden retriever, then that is infectious. And you'll find that people in your crew will stop, I think, focusing on the negative, and that, makes a big difference when you're spending 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, or a career with people that you're relying on for your safety and for your effectiveness being able to do the job. So, what you hold in your mind will color your thoughts and color who you are as a leader. So keep it positive.
It's all about that positivity. And that is probably one of the best ways I've ended a podcast, I think. Like, right? And again, it's weird because with Jeremy and National Fire Radio, when we talked about doing this, it was like, your personal size up. Yeah. And I kind of got a little scared with this episode, even more than my last one with Kim, because we related so much to Kim's life. But this one I thought would go too far into the show or into the fire service. But I can't thank you guys enough for sharing your own personal thoughts on this and how this affected your personal size up. And I think that's a big deal for everyone to kind of take something outside of the fire service and bring it into when it comes to being positive and moving forward. And I cannot wait to see Ted Lasso season 2 and what my favorite football team, the Richmond Greyhounds, in their fictional world, although they do have a website. And there is a YouTube that Ted calls, oh God, what's his name? Jose, he's in the playbook. The football.
Oh,
Jose Morano.
Yeah, yeah, it starts with an M. I can't pull it.
Yeah,
I'm not good with names.
But Ted literally, it's like a phone call between the two of them asking about, like, Ted needs advice.
That's great.
Basically. So you see that on YouTube and I'm like, this is amazing. I love it. But
wow,
that is just pretty much, again, the best way to wrap up this show. So if you guys want to share, because we always end up sharing where people can find you if they want to learn some more about you, Wells. I know you're not Mr. Social Media and you're like, what's going on here? But definitely Andy Frederick's Training Days. Follow that. What else do you?
Yeah, check out frederickstrainingdays.com. We canned it for COVID. We didn't feel comfortable putting 350 people in an auditorium in Alexandria for 3 days straight. So I know that was disappointing to some folks, but you can follow us at frederickstrainingdays.com, and we'll be putting out information on the 21 event starting early in the new year. So we'll be looking forward to seeing folks there and letting people join us again this year. So I'm not really on. I have a Facebook account, but I've slowed down on that because I've just realized
no worries. We all know why. No worries.
But I'm on. You can find me on the gram. So that's about it. Yeah.
Where do we find you on the gram? Then you got to do your ad.
It's probably just my name, but it's a private account. So I post very little fire service stuff. It's mostly like my kid riding a bike and painting the house and stuff like that. So
WellsPWilson.com. WellsPWilson.com still exists.
I don't know if that still exists. But yeah, on the gram it's at Wells P. Wilson. So
little known fact: this Wells P. Wilson is a well-known photographer in a small circle here in New Jersey of weddings and different things like that. Let's just say, right? Is a good way to put it. So,
and I'll tell you, everything that wedding photography taught me applies to the fire service too.
Whole another episode.
That's a whole different episode. How wedding photography applies to the fire service. Rob, where do the listeners find you?
Easily, unfortunately.
555 Fitness Instagram for sure.
Instagram for 555 Fitness. Also the Facebook, which we also earn is predominant on for the same reasons. I am on Instagram as well. It's at 555_IG at 555_IG_BUGG. I don't post a lot fire service either. It's usually
it's weird. We don't. I mean, you know, like I probably of the three of us post the most, and that just came out of people thinking I wasn't a real firefighter. To be honest with you, I mean, On for 24 started because so many people were like, "You're not a real firefighter. You're just a fitness guy trying to make a buck."
Look at that mustache. That says otherwise.
Only for November, and Tracy hates
and then you'll probably find me tagging along at any of the larger 555 events behind the Mohawk Madness right there.
Someday we'll get back to those events, but I can't thank you guys enough for joining us tonight. And I can't, again, thank National Fire Radio enough for hosting the Size Up. Make sure you give them a listen to. Also give Rush the Bus a listen to, our EMS podcast. Our friend AJ from Fork and Hose Company is back in the game trying to do some cooking stuff out there for Fork and Hose Company. I'm thinking
bookmark his IGs. That's great recipes, man. You can slot them into the firehouse and they'll never know. They will never know.
You know what's funny too is he was on my state, the NJFMBA's podcast the other day, and he was like, "Look, you know, I put healthy recipes out there, but everything is not like total health. It's all about, you know, how you can have balance in your life." So I think that's a big part of what AJ does, is that balance. I'm pretty sure tonight earlier he was live. So one thing with National Fire Radio, we're trying to get back into more live stuff, trying to engage in the best way we can with different people in these strange days, folks. So cool. Thanks again for listening. We look forward to Ted Lasso season 2. Jason Sudeikis, anyone from Ted Lasso that wants to be on the Size Up, by all means, we will gladly. I have a great panel now. I know Kim would kill me if we had someone from the show on and not her. So maybe in a few episodes we can talk about this again. But
I might do the same.
Let's get Danny Rojas.
You want Danny Rojas? Danny Rojas. We didn't even talk about the chants. Of all things, imagine the fire service if we had chants, like British football chants for people. I think of so many good ones that would just.
No, that could go either way, man.
It will definitely go either way, but that's the whole point of it, right? Some days you may need to hear your chant's not so good. But awesome, guys. Well, thanks for listening, and I'll catch y'all next time.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.